Welcome to this module of the World Climate School course on climate change. The title today is Global Economy and the Future, the Transformation Towards an Ecological Civilization. We will talk about the incompatibility of advanced climate change and a flourishing economy, and how fighting climate change and restoring our planet's health could be the most amazing economic opportunity ever. But that new society will not be around consuming anymore, but rather increasing our well-being, our happiness. Creating a society that is more equitable and works with nature instead of against it. We will introduce three pillars of transformation. First, the circular economy, how to get an economy without waste. Secondly, Doughnut Economics, a new economic model from Oxford professor Kate Raworth to replace GDP as a measure of economic strength. And thirdly, Project Drawdown, a database of solutions to resolve the climate crisis. After that, you will get two different introductions into the circular economy. We will go more in depth into this item, where the other two projects will be done in later modules. Thank you.
The real question of today is, will we transform or will we run into an economic collapse? The choice is stark and simple, and it becomes clear when we're not afraid to look at the facts. The scientists are very clear about it. Climate change and connected crises such as the biodiversity crisis, the water crisis and other ones are a direct, urgent threat to our livelihoods and even our lives. We either transform the way we live together on this planet, or we face a dark future indeed. And we are all in this together. And the transformation is a global transformation, a planetary transformation. Everybody needs to join locally and do their part. But it starts with reinventing the way we look at ourselves and how we relate to the world around us and how we relate to life itself. Because a healthy economy is by nature embedded in a healthy ecology. And people are not aware of it. As somebody just once said, fish are the last ones to discover water. We do not appreciate the air around us, the soils that we live off, and the water that is replenishing our lives. And our air, water, and fertile soils are the product of a thriving biological web of life spanning the planet for millions and millions of years. We are a product of those things, of those elements, and we cannot exist without them. And the current economic system is destroying that web of life, thus destroying itself. It is not sustainable, and it will therefore disappear sooner rather than later. It is up to us if we make the transformation or nature does it for us. We urgently need to make the transition to a system that values people and planet over profit. And if we do not turn around soon, the collapse will come. However, if we do make the turnaround, it will be the largest transformation since we invented agriculture. And it will create millions and millions of jobs, all kinds of opportunities and new adventures into the possibilities of life. And we have the chance of creating this economy, which will be an economy based on well-being or happiness. And we can do it if we set our minds to it. So the bad news is that we have to understand we are already in a phase where things are going wrong, with increasing pressure on all elements of our life and on our societies and so on. It is in many cases a silent story of many people struggling to survive, as the most vulnerable are the ones who get hit first. I would like to tell you a case of silent migration from an area in Bangladesh called the Barisal district, which is near to the, uh, the Bay of Bengal. Bangladesh, as you know, has a fast-growing population, but at the last census, the government found out that the population of one district had actually fallen significantly, and this was the district of Barisal. After careful research, they found out that many small farmers could no longer stay on their land and make a living from those lands due to salination of their lands, caused by encroaching seawater infiltration, which was both caused by sea level rise as well as more frequent storms, and also lower rivers in dry times, so that the seawater could encroach more. So the combination of all these effects, which are all related to climate change, made it impossible for rice and other crops to grow on their food any longer. The only farmers that could still make a living were shrimp farmers, because shrimps can thrive in brackish and saline waters. But for most, the investments were too high, and poorer farmers sold their lands at a discount and migrated to the capital Dhaka and other cities, where they joined the army of people in the slums looking for jobs to make a living. This all happened for years without anybody reporting about it until the facts turned up in a census and the issue was researched. The degradation of lives and livelihoods of innumerable people is a grinding process that hardly gets noticed. It is the proverbial case of frogs being boiled in a pot. The urban elite doesn't really notice it because they move around in cars and have air conditioning and watch the internet, where only attention for the rich and powerful is really playing out in full. So I want you to think of cases in your own life, how the quality of your life is deteriorating slowly, maybe hardly perceptibly, both economically and in terms of general well-being, caused by all the stresses that are increasing daily. The good news is that more and more people, and especially the youth of today, understand the need for a great reset of the economy to get us through this crisis, and that we have already many of the answers to battle this crisis. The biggest problem is not finding solutions, because we have most of them, but is to getting us moving. But once people see the opportunities, the transformation will actually will accelerate fast. Reversing the crisis will be the largest global economic activity by the 2030s. So do understand that this is not about crisis, just about crisis. It's also about turnaround and new opportunities. We will be in the middle of an energy transition, which is has many facets, like efficiency, solar energy, wind energy, energy made from water, and nuclear energy. We will be busy with a lot more to improve the water cycle management, storing more water on land, in vegetation, in dams and ponds, and making it more productive and diminishing its threats, while, for instance, diminishing the amount of water that agriculture needs for irrigation. We will be in the middle of a food revolution, which is an agricultural revolution first of all, but also a localization of food production and consumption, which changes the whole supply chain of food, which is now a global thing. We will concentrate more on healthier diets with a smaller footprint and decreasing food waste, which is actually a positive because we will actually keep more money in our pockets. And one of the large movements will be that of landscape restoration. We have to understand that land, if fully created in its best possible way with vegetation and good topsoil and water retention possibilities, is actually at its most productive in terms of photosynthesis, which is the basis of all life. So we will need new integrated land management. We need to revitalize lands. We need to green and reforest them, also to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And we can make them more productive with all these combined techniques. Another large industry will be to make communities more resilient, which means more increased public health, a better increased public health, more concentration on healthcare and social services, providing more education to more people, quite often free and over the internet, e-learning. And because of the increasing threats through climate change, we will need to update and upgrade our disaster and emergency response services, which also hold a lot of new jobs. And lastly, we have to redesign all the products that we use and design it into a circular economy. We have to reuse water and other resources, and we have to go to zero waste. The transition that we need seems overwhelming, but actually it's all in the mind. Don't forget that we have created the civilization, the economic system, the society as exists today. It didn't fall out of the sky. It was something that we constructed together over many generations. So what we made, we can also change. And we can do it again. And this time, we need to do it. And actually, we're in a hurry to do it. And one of the ways we need to transform our societies is transforming the way we are looking at our own lives. Together, we have to unite all people and organizations to create a vision and a plan for this sustainable economy where people thrive as part of a natural ecosystem. We are part of nature, and thinking that we are outside of it is a grave mistake that can kill us. And we need to make a shift from a short-term exploitative economic model to an economic model of happiness with a vision of the long-term viability of our lands and of our children. And it can be done, but only if we include the vast reservoir of wisdom of our species, our new knowledge on how ecosystems work, and the most cutting-edge forms of innovation technology. And we need to integrate all this access to information, communication, and cooperation. Innovation actually happens through connecting knowledge. We already have all the parts. The solutions exist. The change makers are there. Millions and millions want to change this world to a better place. And I think we have a chance for a new civilization to emerge. If we make it happen, we will have been successful. But the key to success is connection and inclusivity. In order to change everything, we need everyone. So we have to realize designing the future is up to us. And we also should not forget that people have common sense more than you think. Up to the humble farmer has knowledge that would amaze you about the possibilities of growing food. It's not just our leaders who have it. Actually, it's possible to set 100 people of a society together, inform them with the latest science about where we are, and they will come up with practical solutions how to get out of our mess. And I think it is very, very important that we create room and support the youth. They have to take the reins to make this enormous transition work. So once more, I'd like to stress, while rounding off, that it's all in the mind, and it's up to us to make the great transition. The new economy will be based on new principles to guide our lives. Let us heal the wounds we've inflicted on our beautiful earth we are born from. The earth has given us our lives. And here you find some new principles to guide our lives and livelihoods in the decades to come, which I propose to you, but which I think you should think about yourself. First of all, we all are nature. We come from nature. We are part of ecosystems, and without which we cannot live. We should also have more confidence in nature because it has always provided, and maybe we simply need to listen and observe better how nature does it, because she has been doing it for millions and even billions of years. And we are part of that smart system of life that is much older and probably much wiser than we are. Water is life, treat it with respect. Air is life, treat it with respect. Let's not forget that we borrow this earth from future generations. We have obligation to be guardians of the land, and we should leave it in a better way than the way we got it. Land does not belong to people. Land stays, people go. We belong to the land. Let's treat it with respect and give it all our input to become thriving again, to become lush and vegetated, and therefore give us a lot of food. Not possession, but security, sharing, and happiness should be our guiding principle. If you know that society will take care of you no matter what happens, you don't need to have millions of dollars in a bank account to feel secure. You can just rely on society. Happy relationships to other people and to nature bring relaxed, motivated people that have inspiration, and you know that with inspired, energized people, we can make a transition much faster than with tired, cynical people who don't see a way out. So let's be part of this new reset of the economy. 10 years from now, the economy will look completely different if we all set our hearts, minds, and hands to it. Thank you.
So now we have arrived at the stage in our course where we are looking at the practical foundation of our future economy that will guide us through this change, which we call the 3 pillars of a sustainable economy: the circular economy, Doughnut Economics, and Project Drawdown. The circular economy, which is defined by Wikipedia as an economic system aimed at eliminating waste and the continual use of resources. Circular systems employ reuse, sharing, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling to create a closed-loop system, minimizing the use of resource input and the creation of waste, pollution, and carbon emissions. The circular economy aims to keep products, equipment, and infrastructure in use for longer, thus improving the productivity of these resources. Waste materials and energy could become input for other processes, either a component or a recovered resource for another industrial process, or as regenerative resources for nature, for instance, compost. The regenerative approach is in contrast to the traditional linear economy, which has a take, make, and dispose model of production, which no longer is valid. The next pillar is so-called Doughnut Economics. Eternal growth on a limited planet is impossible, and at the same time, not taking care of all human beings is immoral. Doughnut economics is a model that replaces the idea of GDP and puts in its place a model in the form of a donut, as you can see, that shows the safe and just operating space where we can thrive, caring for everybody's needs and not exceeding the planetary boundaries. Here the needs of people are met without overshooting Earth's ecological ceilings. In this model, an economy is considered prosperous when all 12 social foundations are met, without overshooting any of the 9 ecological ceilings. This situation is represented by the green area between the 2 rings, considered by its creator, Kate Raworth, as the safe and just space for humanity. You will meet her in the TED Talk that you find on the slide, and we'll talk more about it in Module 8. The third and last pillar that we want to introduce is Project Drawdown. In order to keep our planet habitable and thriving, we will not only need to weed ourselves off of fossil fuels as fast as possible, but we also need to draw down atmospheric carbon and put it back in the ground and vegetation of the planet where it came from. Drawdown is a book that has as its subtitle the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. It came out in 2017 and was created, written and edited by Paul Hawken and some other authors about climate change mitigation. The book describes solutions arranged in order by broad categories such as energy, food, women and girls, buildings and cities, land use, transport, materials, etc. A huge website has followed the book where hundreds of solutions are described in detail, ranked by the potential amount of greenhouse gases each could cut, with cost estimates, descriptions and job opportunities. We will see more of it in later in the course, but please take a look at home at the website drawdown.org and the video that we have chosen to introduce you into the subject.
Hi, Alex here. Today's video is about circular economy. It is a term that we hear a lot these days. I was asked many times to make a video about it, so here it is. I will explain what we mean by circular economy. I will go through all the things we can do to go from our current economy to a circular one, and I will use many examples. If you stay until the end, I will share a book with you that you can read to learn more about it. You will see there is way more to it than just recycling. Okay, let's get drawing. When my son was 3 years old and asking his mommy what was this circular economy thing she was working on, here is what she told him. It is when everything is healthy food for something else. So simple and sweet. I loved it. In other words, it means running the economy like nature runs its own business. Plants use carbon dioxide and nutrients to grow and produce oxygen. Animals use oxygen and create carbon dioxide and nutrients. Nothing is wasted. It is a closed-loop system. Circular economy is generally opposed to the linear economy, take, make, waste, we have been running for many years. Some people also use the term cradle to cradle as opposed to cradle to grave. As explained in my triple bottom line video, the economy is part of society, which is part of the environment. You can click here if you want to watch this video. Now let's look at the economy. We can split into 2 categories the things that we need to run into closed loops. Technical materials, biological materials. Technical materials have this typical life cycle. Raw materials are mined, the product is manufactured, then it is transported to be used until the end of its life. We often tend to think about the end of life and the importance of recycling, and this is true. But for our economy to be circular, there are many things we can do before the end of life. It starts with using resources that are already extracted. Say my product needs copper. It is best to mine copper that is not used anymore, that we also call post-consumer, as opposed to mining some new one from the ground. Especially when you know that 1. Copper is predicted to be mined out worldwide by 2040, and 2. Processing recycled copper uses only 10 to 20% of the energy it takes to process new copper from virgin ore. When manufacturing my product, I can design it so it can easily be dismantled and the copper can easily be recycled next time. I can also manufacture my product so it lasts a long time, so it can be maintained and repaired. I can design it so it uses as little energy as possible. This TED video uses a great example of a tea kettle and the fact that during commercial break of a popular TV show, England has to buy nuclear power from France because millions of people go to the kitchen at the same time to boil an entire 2-liter kettle to make 1 cup of tea. Once a product cannot be used anymore, then it needs to be collected and recycled. Here comes an important question. Does the recycled material maintain its quality to be used for similar applications, or is it downcycled into a material that has a poorer quality? Downcycled was a term from the book Cradle to Cradle. You can find a link in the description below. Remember, in a circular economy, everything is healthy food for something else. Nothing goes to landfill. Biological materials are farmed or collected and then possibly processed and transported before reaching the consumer. Once consumed, they can be used to create biogas, biochemicals, or be composted. Finally, they can go back to nature to restore it. But again, in a circular economy, nothing goes to landfill. 2 transition strategies can be very helpful as we're trying to create a circular economy. Substitution and dematerialization. Substitution is about using different resources to achieve the same goal. For example, the world is running out of lithium. So, unless we can recycle lithium batteries more efficiently, sodium-ion batteries might be a better option for car manufacturers in the future. Dematerialization refers to using less of a resource to serve the same economic function in society. As an example, Interface is the world's largest designer and maker of commercial modular carpet. But they don't sell the carpet anymore. Their customers buy the service of having carpet on their floor. Interface is in charge of maintaining and repairing the carpet, and they do that very efficiently because it is their specialty and they control the entire process. Using tiles, they can replace only the ones that need replacing. The old tiles go back to the factory to be recycled, where new tiles are made with 98% recycled or bio-based content. How is that for almost circular? Of course, creating a circular economy is only one piece of the sustainability puzzle, and many other aspects have to be taken into account to get 100% sustainable. Climate change, sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, social sustainability, etc.
I'd like to introduce you to Siddharth Handa. He is the CEO and founder of Kabadiwala Connect. And I'm going to leave Sid to tell you all about Kabadiwala Connect and what it does. But I just want to say first that the reason I'm super excited to have Sid here is because the work that he's doing is really, as Sid was saying, it's really highlighting the massive opportunity that exists for circular economy in developing countries. And yeah, the examples we've seen and heard about today have basically all come from Europe and the Western world. But that, of course, doesn't mean that we should ignore the huge potential for emerging economies to really contribute to the transition to a circular economy. And, you know, if we're going to achieve that on a global scale.
Yep.
It's really key. So Sid, welcome. Thanks very much for being here. Just to start with, can you summarize in a nutshell what Kabadiwala Connect is?
Yeah. So Kabadiwala Connect is a tech-driven, data-centric social enterprise that integrates the informal sector into the formal waste management system. So some context, in the developing world, I think there's an OECD study that says that 80% of work is informal. And when we think about informality, especially in waste management, we think about the waste picker, but actually there's this incredible decentralized supply chain of people incentivized working to recover material. Starts with a waste picker who picks up material on the ground. He sells it to a kabadiwala, a small level 1 aggregator. They're called lapaks in Indonesia. There's actually names for them all across the developing world. These guys aggregate more volume, take that material, sell it to a level 2 aggregator, somebody outside the city, and then finally that material, depending on the type of material, goes to a formal processor or an informal processor. In India, for example, PET, the final person is a formal processor, which then Adidas and all of these guys buy material to say, wow, it's ocean plastic, or that kind of a thing. But with other types of material, now we're working now on commercial pilots to see how we can get volume from this informal sector in a way that improves the livelihoods of and the lives of the most marginalized stakeholders. So that's essentially what we do. To make that kind of like make it relevant from a business perspective, what we offer is traceability of material movement in the informal supply chain, traceability and compliance, but we also do collection, and we want to get into processing because we believe the informal sector is really a critical supply chain that needs to be engaged if we're serious about what a circular economy can mean. Not in the developing world, but globally.
Yeah, great. So how did you get into that? What's your background?
So I'm a data scientist by training, so spatial data, so any data with a latitude and longitude is, I really like it. And I realized, my engagement with waste was in college when we used to organize beach cleanups. And we did it in a really cool way. It was a youth collective. We were all very bored with college. And we said, okay, why is there so much material coming onto the beach? And we started organizing cleanups. After a year and a half of working, we actually started asking questions. What are we doing? We're just moving waste from one place to another, from the beach to a landfill. And by the way, landfills in India and the developing world, you can't really call them landfills. They're like open dump sites. You know what I mean? So that really that got me interested, because when we were doing these cleanups, we saw waste pickers coming in and picking up specific types of materials. And when I looked at the literature, most people only talk about waste pickers, and they are the most marginalized people in this supply chain. But I was really interested, what does the ecosystem look like? And then, so we started mapping the informal supply chain of small traders, large traders, middlemen, all of these kinds of people. And what we actually have, the data shows us that it is a robust supply chain, something that's built around the notion of decentralization and material movement. And I think that, honestly, the West has a lot to learn from how that supply chain evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really key, isn't it? That what we're looking at really is quite a sophisticated system.
Yeah.
That is basically it's kind of invisible.
Yeah.
But so you're using technology really to leverage that system and kind of bring it to life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. Like, I've gone to a lot of different kinds of pitches talking about what we do, and we typically get roped into this. You're like an Uber for waste. You're connecting the local kabadiwala to the household. I said, well, not really. I mean, yeah, we are geo-enabled. Hyperlocal is a focus, but we care about our vendors, We want the lives of waste pickers to improve. We want the lives of the kabadiwalas to improve, and we need a social contract. So it's really exciting now to see, working with companies like Danone and Veolia in Indonesia, who share that idea of efficiency, is not just trying to sell a big processing machine and for some short-term gain, but really, what does it mean, the circular economy? And I think that there's a lot of conversation here as well, where people in different panels just ask, what does it mean?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And for me, just my 2 cents, I think for me, the circular economy, if it's really to be relevant to solve the big problems, the big challenges we have, it's about eliminating supply chain inefficiency. And it's about removing this idea of externalization. I think that supply chains here have a huge problem with externalizing the cost. move our waste. And the worst example is let's move our waste to Malaysia, and now that China is not taking it, let's move it somewhere else, right? But there's also a lot of subsidization that happens in the production centers which are in the developing world, so that products here are cheaper, and it's just completely unsustainable, and something needs to change.
Yeah, and I think like another key point really is, what Kabadiwala Connect is doing is bringing a method that is kind of primed for where you're working, and we need to recognize that solutions for the Western world really don't work in India and other developing countries. And it needs a different
also
approach.
like we need to question, like with data, what does developed and developing really mean? I think that there's so many signals around consumption that's coming from the US and from Europe and coming into the developing world that's absolutely unsustainable. And for me, I think that this data that we have is a kind of a good reminder about how things are built and how the idea of a decentralized supply chain and about how like eliminating externalities can really talk about what we mean when we say circular economy, which in my case is like a more equitable world, something that we can pass on to our children and things like this.
So can you just give just a couple of examples of like the specific projects that Kabadiwala Connect are doing, just to make it a bit more real for people here?
Yeah, so the first is we've just launched a new video about a local collection service that we've just launched a pilot in my city, Chennai, India, which is a city in South India. There's a video on our website, kabadiwalaconnect.in, that you can see. Essentially, what we're doing is we're taking one small scrap shop and providing the tools such that the waste pickers that sell to that scrap shop don't have to go to the landfill or don't have to go to open dump sites to pick up material, but rather through an IoT-enabled bin that we put in apartments and households. Now, the beauty of this is all the collection is around, let's say, 5 square kilometers. And one of the things that we started talking when we started engaging in municipality was like, you know what? There's the infrastructure. There are Kabadiwala shops all across the city that can do this. And if we do something like this, their means of collection is actually on tricycles. So we can eliminate, I think it was millions of dollars of diesel cost of collection, this last mile collection, which is really this big challenge that we have. And I think that that's so exciting. I mean, can you imagine if we had a take-back infrastructure that didn't require like petrol or diesel?
Exactly. Brilliant. So what would you say, since you started the Kabadiwala Connect journey, what would you say your kind of key learning or a couple of your key learnings have been?
I think that, entrepreneurs have a lot to add. I think that there are like entrepreneurs who can communicate to audiences, and then there are entrepreneurs who want to put bread on their table for their family. And the Kabadiwalas, the Lapaks of the world do that, and they need to be recognized as a central part of the circular economy.
Awesome. Sid, thanks so much for coming. I think like the key message for me is that really being able to leverage that informal sector is really critical for moving the transition of circular economy forward globally, and something that we really hope to keep working with you on. So thanks very much.
Thank you.